The only people to make money out of the gold rush were the ones selling the shovels. Is there a risk this could happen in the fourth generation of agriculture? For both of you, I guess.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that's the point. I think for me that's the point. That's exactly the issue. Not only do you get technologies being developed which focus on a particular set of interests, but also you get that in the way we do things currently, you get that transfer of value. And that then means that you have less capability to continue to create value as farmers and agriculturalists. So that's why my view is that we need this much more regenerative approach to the way that we support businesses.
Yeah, I'd agree with those points. I'm a big believer in the free market and how that can solve some of our problems, and I kind of went into my scholarship with that belief that private investors would be able to finance the technologies that would solve all our problems. However, through my studies, I kind of realized that private investors aren't really going to be that much help to us with the challenges that we face. They do have a role to play, but not at that early stage. And that's why we do need to see greater investment from the public sector through the government into this space to make sure that the whole of society wins from these technologies.
Thank you. Number 2, please.
Hello, Ale Davis, 2014 scholar. I was intrigued by your comment that an investor exploits an innovator and an innovator exploits a farmer. I think an investor benefits from an innovator and a farmer benefits in the same way. With that, what we're actually looking at there is the fulcrum of people with leadership skills getting new technologies into the marketplace. On your studies, did you see good examples of people being able to develop markets for the new technologies you think are going to come?
So are there examples of that not being exploitative? Is that the heart of the question?
Well, any innovation, before you can get it to market, there's got to be a benefit, either more production or less cost, or better quality end product, or better health, whatever the benefit is. So rather than thinking an investor is going to exploit you as an innovator, if they can benefit from it, there's a market benefit before anything will succeed. What I'm interested in, did you find people that were able to penetrate markets with new technologies? We're all about generating people to inspire positive change. It's not just the technology, there's got to be a people part to this. Did you see good examples of people that could inspire benefit?
Yeah, so just to be clear, I'm not suggesting that it's a solely one-way transaction. There is inevitably value that goes both ways, of course. But what I observed is that when you look across the range of currencies that are being transacted, which could be time, it could be money, it could be biodiversity, there is this tendency. So that's the chain that I was describing. There are definitely examples, lots of examples of entrepreneurs who are bringing new technologies to market that have very real benefit. I spoke to somebody who was developing the capability to assess somatic cell counts in milk as it comes off the cows in line, so you can predict mastitis much more quickly, you can work out using the same technology or fat content, and that gives very real benefits to farmers in terms of their ability to maximize their profits and reduce their costs. Similarly, technologies to enable people to ensure their irrigation is being used efficiently. So there are lots and lots of really good technologies out there coming through, which will have very material benefits, no doubt about it.
Yeah, there's a few that stands out in my mind, both in a good way and bad way, I suppose. One of the most exciting entrepreneurs that I came across or met while I was in New York, Dan Nelson. So he's developing a lot of technologies that allow farmers to measure various metrics on their farms, whether that's soil quality, relating to livestock and so forth. So he's doing a lot of progress in that place. And what I liked about Dan was that he understands how to deal with investors as well. So he has been able to get early stage investments. To be honest, he got early stage investments a few years ago, where he was able to play on the big themes of agri-tech. And even now, he tells me it would be difficult. Now, what's interesting with Dan Nelson, I don't think he works with any farmers. He's developing this technology successfully, and he is selling it to the market. But I find it strange that he is not working with farmers. The other crowd that have excited me, and they did pop up on my slides, are Micron Agritech. So they're an Irish-based startup. They're using AI for animal testing that allows vets to test livestock on the farm rather than sending samples away, which do reduce their time. What's been interesting with them is that they relied heavily on government support in the early years. They've only recently raised about 4.5, 4.8 million, I think last year, from private investors, but they do illustrate, or they're a good example of the important role that governments have in financing these technologies, especially at the early stage.
Okay, can we go to number 4, please? And David Homer.
David Homer, 99 scholar. On our farm, in our family business, we've invested in technology, in both on the arable side in tractors and combines, but also on the dairy side with things like cow wearables, Fitbits for cows, essentially. And the problem is that the geeks developing the technology are way ahead of our ability on farm to keep up and utilize the technology. So we're investing in it, but we're not getting a proper return on it because we don't have the skill set within the family or within our staff. Have you seen any examples of how we might be able to narrow the gap and keep up with the geeks?
For me, the main thing there is to bring farmers involved with the geeks at a very early stage, particularly in the development. So there's an example that comes to mind, well, it's a personal example. So we're looking to develop an AI system to go on drones that can do the analysis immediately on the drone and feed the information back to the farmers, whether that's on the mobile phone or through a computer system. One of the things we're doing in developing that system is to include farmers from the get-go. Now, it takes a lot of time to translate what the geeks are saying into the language of farmers, but it's difficult, but it needs to be done to get the farmers on board. What I've realized is that if we let the geeks talk their language, then the farmers usually disappear, and the project usually crumbles apart because they haven't got that buy-in and the challenges that possess. So we are attempting to bring farmers on board at a very early stage at the Science Park, and hopefully that will help the projects going forward.
Yes, I think that is one of the real issues at the heart of this whole world of ag tech. And if you go to conferences, there's loads of investors and there's loads of technologists, but there's very few farmers. And that is one of the biggest gaps to bridge. And that's one of the reasons that I really liked what AgLaunch are doing, because they bring farmers into the whole process of, this is what the technology could do, how would that fit in your farm? Okay, well, if you think it's quite a good idea, let's work out how to do a trial. Then the geeks have to work really closely with the farmers to set that trial up, and that allows for that information exchange. It allows the geeks, to use your phrase, to really hone what they're trying to achieve and how they explain the benefits, and it allows the farmers to get up to speed on the technical aspects and how they use that information to improve their business. So I think there are really good examples out there that we can learn from.
Sorry, just to add to that, if we think about the developments that we're seeing with artificial intelligence, there's even a greater role for farmers now. The geeks, we have to think of a better word to call them, the geeks that that I know, they will run different simulations on their software to test their system. And I've often come across situations where farmers will look at that simulations and say, yeah, that's not what happens in practice, which again just reinforces that message that we need to bring farmers on board as soon as possible.
Okay, can we have question 5 and then question 1, please, together, if that's all right?
Hi, Tom, 2017 scholar, sorry.
Did you forget?
It's a long time ago now, 5-6 years ago. I think the question for Edward maybe kind of follows the previous one. I wanted to ask about labour, and the food system has relied on low-cost labour, and I wonder if you saw anything during your research that perhaps indicated that was changing, and then what the impact of that change is.
Sorry, I missed that first bit of the question.
So it's labour in agriculture. And I guess the sector's relied on low-cost labour, but is that change? Have you found that that's changing, and what's the impact of that change?
Yeah, it certainly is changing. You know, as I alluded to in my presentation, we now have less people working in agriculture, which does reflect the advances we've made in technologies. I can see us using more technology. I think COVID-19 has helped kickstart that process. Even though the fundamentals were there before, COVID-19 has helped with that. There is an example that springs to mind with COVID-19. There was a local slaughterhouse near to us that had to shut down due to COVID-19. I was talking with the owner of a large slaughterhouse in Denmark, and I asked them, well, have you had to shut down at all due to COVID-19? And they happily said no. The amount of labour that we use in that meat processing process is quite minimal, so it doesn't really impact us. They were heavily reliant on robots, on AI, on image recognition technologies to do all the work. So, you know, that was a good example of the shift away from labour to technology. And I can imagine as the population of those living in rural areas continues to decrease, we'll see more movements towards that.
Do you mind if we just move to question 1 now, please, Hannah?
Hello, Chris Manley, 2021 scholar, studying leadership, and actually more recently looking into one of my strands is leadership without authority. And so, Hannah, this is a question more specifically to yourself. I saw your image up there with the person with their head in their hands, and everybody here has probably got an idea, but failure feels really crap, doesn't it? It feels absolutely terrible. How do we create an environment, both outside and inside organisations, where kind of failure is okay, that kind of agile working thought process? How do we encourage kind of entrepreneurship or intrapreneurship to sort of create the right environment for these technologies to be successful?
Oh, good question, not one I'd prepared an answer to. I think there are examples of organisations that are good at learning from failure. I'll give you one example which springs to mind immediately, which is the aviation sector. Every time something goes wrong in aviation, there are really exhaustive processes to understand what happened, what went wrong, and with a no-blame culture so that you can learn and understand. So I think there are examples of organisations that do that really well that other organisations can learn from. There's probably also something about creating situations in which you can find out quickly, and specifically with regard to new ventures, is this going to be a success? Are my underlying hypotheses correct? And I spoke to somebody who's done quite a lot of work with entrepreneurs, helping them to set up their ventures as if they were scientific ventures, scientific experiments. So what are my assumptions? Can I test those assumptions? And if they're proven to be right, then I take the next step. If they're proven to be wrong, I need to go back to the beginning. And they found that's been really helpful in avoiding wasting time and energy and time pursuing things which are fundamentally flawed. But I don't think it's like a simple, this is one piece of the answer. I think there are lots of pieces of answers that need to be collated and tailored to specific circumstances.
Okay, can we just draw the session to a close, please? I'd just like Edward and Hannah to sort of come up and receive their scrolls, please. So Edward first. Thank you.